I was always the reserved sibling, unnoticed until my brother relegated me to a corner near the waste bin after I funded his celebration. So, I left the tab unsettled and revealed everything to his fiancée. I'm Lucas, 36 years old now. I've consistently been the most reliable among my siblings. Never the favorite, never the rebel, never the one celebrated. I was simply the guy who showed up on time, covered his own expenses, and never forgot a birthday. I work in finance, live alone, and steer clear of conflict. My family is boisterous, overly sentimental in a superficial way, and experts at pretending everything's perfect while ignoring real issues. I was always there but never truly embraced, like someone invited to a wedding but left out of the group photos. As kids, my brother Jason was the star, bold, reckless, always up to something dangerous, yet he always landed on his feet. That cocky confidence? My parents ate it up. Even when he dropped out of college, cycled through jobs, and moved back home at 30, they called him a prodigy. Meanwhile, I worked my way through school, held a steady job for nearly a decade, and even helped with their mortgage when Dad's hours were cut. But none of that seemed to matter. It didn't earn me a real place in the family. I acted like it didn't hurt, or at least I convinced myself it didn't. I stayed quiet, kept contributing, answered their calls, came home for holidays, and grinned through the subtle jabs masked as humor. "Lucas, why so serious? It's just a party." "Oh, we thought you were busy. You always are." I let it slide, holding on to a faint hope that if I kept showing up, they'd eventually see me as more than the guy in the background paying for things. That hope crumbled last October. It started with a dinner. Jason had just proposed to Lauren, whom my mom instantly adored, calling her a blessing. My parents planned a lavish dinner at a fancy rooftop restaurant, far beyond their usual means. A red flag I should have noticed. Mom called me weeks earlier, her voice dripping with that sweet tone she uses when she needs a favor. "Lucas, honey, we'd love for you to join us for Jason and Lauren's engagement party. It's going to be so special." I agreed without hesitation, asking for the details. Then her voice softened further. "Oh, and if you don't mind, could you cover the deposit to secure the venue? We'll settle up later." I should have known settle up meant I'd be stuck with the bill, but like always, I said yes. I called the restaurant, booked a private area for 20, and paid the deposit with my card. I wasn't resentful. It was Jason's moment, and I hoped this time I'd feel included. On the evening of the dinner, I arrived right at 7 p.m., dressed in a sharp navy suit, crisp shirt, cufflinks I'd saved for, and carrying a bottle of fine champagne as a gift. I'd even made a custom card with their initials. When I reached the rooftop, the hostess nodded and pointed me to the private section. I took a deep breath and walked in. The place was stunning. Twinkling lights overhead, floral centerpieces, soft jazz in the background. Everyone was already there. My parents, Jason, Lauren, her family, their friends, all laughing, sipping drinks, and chatting. I approached with a smile, expecting a warm welcome. Jason glanced over, flashing that smug grin. "Oh, hey," he said, barely glancing at the champagne. "Good you made it." Then he gestured to a folding chair crammed next to a trash can. "Not much room left, sorry. This table's for family, but you've got a spot there." I froze. I thought he was joking. I looked at Mom, who gave a weak, tight-lipped smile, the one she uses when she wants to stay out of it. Dad let out an awkward chuckle and raised his glass. Lauren didn't look up, and a few others snickered. I stood there a moment too long, wanting to speak but unable to. My face burned. It felt like I was 13 again, excluded from a family photo at my cousin's wedding because I didn't fit. I walked to the lone chair, set the champagne down, and sat. I kept my coat on. A waiter approached, asking if I was part of the party. I nodded silently. He handed me a glass of water and moved on. For nearly 2 hours, I sat quietly as everyone laughed, gave toasts, and exchanged gifts. I listened as Jason rambled about how lucky he was to be surrounded by his closest loved ones. Lauren called my mom the best mother-in-law ever, and I watched Mom tear up. No one asked if I wanted to order food. Dessert arrived. A towering cake with shimmering gold accents. Music played softly. The city skyline glowed as the sun set. I realized no one had glanced my way in over 30 minutes. Then came the bill. I saw the waiter approach their table with a leather folder. He hesitated, scanned the room, then checked the payment details. My card. I remembered. The waiter walked over. "Excuse me, sir," he said politely. "The total is $4,860. Shall we process it on the card you provided?" All eyes turned. Jason raised an eyebrow. "Oh, yeah," he said nonchalantly. "Lucas is handling it." The waiter looked at me. I gave a slow, tight smile, my voice steady. "I'm not with that group," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "They said this table was for family only." The room went silent, the tension palpable. Jason's jaw twitched. Mom looked confused. Dad sat up straighter. Lauren's dad narrowed his eyes. The waiter seemed unsure. "But sir, you made the reservation." "I did," I nodded. "And I paid the deposit. But I wasn't seated with them. I was over here, by the trash." You could feel the shock ripple through the room. The waiter stood frozen, holding the bill like it was radioactive. Jason's face tightened, his fake smile turning sharp. Mom's eyes darted between me and the bill, as if she couldn't process it. "Lucas, wait," she said softly, uncertain. "What are you doing?" I shrugged. "Just following the seating arrangement. Jason said the main table was for families, so I figured I don't count." I turned to the waiter. "I didn't eat. I didn't drink. I wasn't included. I'm not paying." "Don't be ridiculous," Jason snapped, his grin gone. "It was a joke. You always make everything so serious." The room was deathly quiet, even the jazz fading to a faint hum. All eyes were on me, and for once, I didn't back down. "That's the problem," I said calmly. "You think it's funny as long as someone else is the joke." Lauren looked startled, like she was seeing something new. Her dad, stiff in his blazer, stared at Jason. "You invited him to your engagement dinner and put him by the trash?" he asked, incredulous. Jason scoffed, looking to Mom for backup. She forced a smile. "Let's not make a scene. Lucas always overreacts." I almost laughed. That was her go-to excuse. I'm dramatic, I'm sensitive, I misunderstand. Anything to avoid admitting their cruelty, or that they stood by while it happened. The waiter cleared his throat. "I'm sorry, but we need to settle the bill to close the event. If the original card isn't used, we'll need another payment method." No one spoke. I stood, grabbed my coat, and headed for the elevator. Dad finally spoke. "Lucas, come on. You already paid part of it. Just finish it." That line broke something in me. I turned slowly. "You're right, Dad. I did pay the deposit. I called 3 venues to find one with a rooftop like Jason wanted. I picked a date that worked with his sports schedule. I chose real flowers because Mom said fake ones would ruin the pictures. I paid the $1,000 non-refunded deposit without a second thought. I showed up alone, dressed up for my brother. And what did I get? A folding chair by the trash and a family that clearly doesn't see me as part of it." I looked straight at Jason. "So now it's your turn to figure it out. You and your real family." Jason's face flushed red, his neck blotchy. He stood taller, trying to seem intimidating, but it just looked pathetic. "You're overreacting," he said. "I'm not," I replied, evenly. "I'm drawing a line." I turned and left, skipping the elevator and taking the stairs. Each step felt electric, a mix of disbelief and adrenaline. I'd done something I'd only imagined. Outside, the cool air hit me like a wake-up call. I loosened my tie and kept walking, no destination in mind, just certain I wouldn't turn back. I thought that was the end. A bold exit, maybe some tense apologies later, or an attempt to smooth things over. But I didn't expect how far that moment would ripple. Later that night, still in my suit, holding the unopened champagne like a dead weight, my phone lit up. Jason texted first. "Bro, really? You couldn't just pay and talk later?" Then Mom. "You embarrassed us in front of Lauren's family. Was this about revenge?" Then a call from an unknown number, Lauren. "Hey," she said, her voice softer than I'd ever heard. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure," I said cautiously. "Did you really pay for everything? The deposit, the flowers, all of it?" I paused. "Yeah." Silence. "Because they told my dad you offered, that it was your idea." That stopped me cold. "I didn't offer," I said truthfully. "They asked. I agreed. I wasn't trying to show off or expect anything back, but it definitely wasn't my idea." She sighed. "My dad's furious. He thought you did it as a kind gesture, but now he's saying he wouldn't have picked that place if he knew the guy paying was seated by the trash." I stayed quiet. "He said Jason and your parents made him look like a fool," she added. "I'm not trying to get involved," she said quickly. "I just thought you should know." I thanked her and hung up. But that was just the start. Over the next few days, things unraveled faster than I expected, and not in the way my family hoped. It began with the family group chat, the one that only buzzes for holidays or birthdays, filled with blurry food pics, recycled memes, and Aunt Ashley's Happy Friday gifts. It had been silent since the dinner, but suddenly exploded. "Mom, Lucas, we need to talk." "Call me." "Jason, you messed things up with Lauren's family. Fix it." "Dad, this is getting out of hand. Just apologize so we can move on." I didn't reply. This wasn't about a chair or a bill. It was about being the family's go-to fix-it guy, the errand runner, the backup wallet. Now that I'd said no, they didn't know how to handle it. Lauren's dad made things worse, or better, depending on your view. He doesn't take kindly to public humiliation. According to Brian, Jason's friend who always treated me decently, Mr. Whitman lost it the morning after the dinner. He'd paid for Lauren's top-tier education, supported her marketing business, and went all out for a polished engagement, only to learn the groom's family lied about the payment, disrespected their own kin, and stuck him with part of the bar tab after I refused to pay. Brian said Lauren's dad dropped a line at breakfast. If they treat their own blood like this, what happens when you're legally tied to them? Ouch. Jason was reeling. Wedding plans halted. Lauren retreated to her apartment to think, and her wedding Pinterest boards vanished. Mom, trying to fix it, sent a long email. Not a text, not a call, a formal email. Subject, please. 5 paragraphs of sugar-coated guilt. She said she never meant to hurt me, didn't realize I felt excluded, and it'd mean so much if I could talk to Jason and sort it out. The word sorry never appeared. Just phrases like, we didn't see it. You took it wrong. Don't ruin what we have over one night. I stared at that last line. What did we have? Was she talking about the time I drove 3 hours on Christmas Eve to deliver gifts because Jason was too stressed to shop? Or when I canceled my Spain trip to cover Dad's surgery costs because they couldn't afford a nurse? Or when I co-signed for their second car, the one Jason borrowed and never returned? I didn't reply. I didn't even open the email again. 2 days later, Aunt Karen called, my mom's sister. That surprised me. She's never been warm, but she's straightforward, runs an interior design firm, and keeps a cool professional edge. We hadn't talked in over a year. Lucas, she said, I heard about the dinner. I braced myself, expecting a lecture. I'm not here to blame you, she said quickly. I'm glad you did it. It was long overdue. That threw me. She sighed. I know how your parents work. Always brushing things under the rug, acting like everything's perfect. They've leaned on you too much, too long. And Jason? He's always treated you like you're invisible. Thanks, I said quietly. But why call now? Because Lauren's dad is involved, she said bluntly. And your mom's freaking out. She called me yesterday begging me to make you back off. I raised an eyebrow. And what did you say? I told her you don't need a lecture. You need space. Maybe it's time they learn to stand without you holding them up. That was the first time a family member saw me. Not as a resource, but as a person. That night, Jason texted, Bro, Lauren's dad just canceled the venue deposit. Said we have different values. You gotta fix this. Help me out. Me, number. You handle it. That was the moment it clicked. He still saw me as the safety net, the human ATM. So I decided to fix something, but not what he expected. That night, I logged into a joint bank account I'd opened a year ago when Jason was jobless and needed help. He never closed it. His streaming and gym memberships were still linked. I transferred the remaining balance, about $2,000, to a personal savings account I'd set up. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Money I hadn't touched because I felt obligated to keep it there. Then I called the bank and closed the joint account for good. Jason called 4 times the next morning, frantic. When I finally picked up, he was panicking. What the hell did you do? My card's getting declined. The account's gone. I know, I said calmly. I closed it. You can't just... I can, I cut in. And I did. You made it clear I'm not family, remember? So if I don't get a seat at the table, you don't get access to my money. He paused, then switched tactics. Come on, man. This is petty. You're just mad. You've always been jealous that people pay more attention to me. I laughed, a real laugh. Jason, you think Lauren's dad is on your side? Silence. Don't worry, I said. You'll figure it out. You always do. Ask Mom for another card, or let Lauren's dad show you what accountability looks like. I hung up. I didn't know what Jason did next, but hours later, my phone pinged again. Not from him. Lauren emailed, subject, we need to talk. I stared at the subject line before opening it. The message was long, polite, but raw, like a letter with heart woven into every line. She said she realized how awful that night was, that she hadn't seen how I was treated until it all fell apart. I was so focused on making everything look perfect, she wrote, that I missed what was really going on. Her dad was livid, she said, not just about the payment lies, but the disrespect. He told me, if they can humiliate someone who gave their time and money, I need to rethink the family I'm joining. Lauren didn't sugarcoat it. She said Jason tried to brush it off as a misunderstanding. But when her dad got the full invoice from the restaurant manager, the truth came out. Jason had told her I volunteered to pay, that I chose to sit alone because I'm shy, and that I left for a work emergency. But Lauren went to the restaurant herself, confirmed it with the waiter, and the story unraveled. Then came the bombshell. I called off the engagement last night. I froze. She said it wasn't just the dinner. It exposed a pattern she'd ignored. Jason's arrogance, his dismissiveness toward her, the way he talked about me behind my back. He kept saying I was overreacting, she wrote. But you were the only one who acted with any integrity. She ended with, I'm not writing to drag you into this or bash Jason. I just wanted you to know I see it now, and I'm sorry I didn't sooner. I read it multiple times, not because I doubted it, but because I wasn't used to someone taking my side. The family group chat went quiet for weeks. Jason called twice more. I ignored him, and he stopped trying. Lauren returned the ring, and her dad canceled the venue and vendors. I heard Jason move back to our parents' place, working a part-time job he hates, living rent-free, probably avoiding his reflection. Some of his friends ditched him, and a few only stuck around for Lauren's connections. I thought that was the end, that it'd fade into silence. But one quiet Sunday morning, there was a knock at my door. It was Mom, standing on my porch in a loose sweater, clutching a Tupperware of casserole like a peace offering. Her eyes were puffy, her makeup barely there. I didn't speak, just opened the door and waited. I brought you food, she mumbled. I didn't take it. I want to talk, she said. No excuses, no blame. That caught me off guard. I let her in. She sat at my kitchen table like when I was a kid. Her hands fidgeted, and she forced a smile, but there was no defense this time. You're tired, she said. He didn't mean it. She caught herself. I need to apologize. I crossed my arms. For what, exactly? Her face tightened, but she nodded. You're right. For more than one thing. She took a breath. I didn't want to see it. It was easier not to. Jason's always been loud, drawing attention. You never complained, you just handled everything. We treated you like something unbreakable, something we could always rely on. You know what happens with safety nets? I said. People only notice them when they fail, not when they're holding you up. Her lip trembled as she looked at her hands. Your dad and I were wrong. We let Jason do whatever he wanted. We let him act like you didn't matter. I didn't respond. I can't undo it, she said. And I know food and words won't erase the years we didn't see you, but I needed you to hear this. I understand now, and I'm sorry. I looked at her for a long moment. For once, she wasn't making excuses, wasn't defending Jason, wasn't telling me to move on. She was just owning it. I nodded. Thanks. We didn't talk much after that. She left the casserole. I walked her to the door. She didn't mention Jason or ask me to reach out. She just said, take care, and left. Things didn't heal instantly, but they didn't fall apart either. My parents started texting me individually, not in group chats. Short, polite messages. Mom invited me to Thanksgiving, adding, only if you're ready. I haven't responded yet. I heard Jason's still at their place, working a job he despises, mooching off them, probably dodging mirrors. He hasn't called since, which suits me fine. I started reading about emotional boundaries, family dynamics, and finding inner calm. I finally took that trip to Spain. I bought noise-canceling headphones. I started therapy, not because I'm broken, but because I know healing doesn't need apologies. It starts when you look at yourself and say, you deserved better, so give it to yourself. I didn't pay that bill that night, but I finally collected what I'd been owed for years, and for the first time, I'm not sitting by the trash. I've claimed my own place.